think one thing that people don't realize when you're writing a book is, especially when it takes almost a decade to finish.
It took you a decade to finish?
It took about 7 years, almost like 9 years maybe. There were many times when I said, I'm really not meant to do this. I think quitting is okay. Having that feeling of really dark, dismal failure, just feeling like you've fallen into a pit with your work, I think that's okay.
Because that's like the journey of the artist, right?
Yeah, and I think we need to normalize it a little more. I think we need to not just normalize the struggle, but normalize the part of it where you just don't want to do this anymore, where you want to walk away from the thing you love the most. I mean, we can talk about it, I guess, at some point. I think that comes up with motherhood too, or even with marriage, or any dark moments when you say, I'm done with this. I want to walk away from the thing that I love the most. But that doesn't mean it's over.
Hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy.
You've obviously had so many accomplishments with this particular book, and you've obviously shared a lot on, just the Brave Table within the first 5 minutes. How have you been unpacking kind of the successes with this newfound and navigating this new path of your rebirth in many ways?
So, I mean, with the book, for example, I was working on the book for about 7 years and working completely in the dark. And I think what happens, when a book does well, or when anybody has any kind of success, there's a way that the journey there can either be turned into this heroic moment and this kind of heroic narrative, or it can kind of get forgotten. And it seems like this kind of moment taken out of context of great success. But I think for me, the experience was one of just like daily toil and struggle and coming back to the page again and again, and then having doubts. I think one thing that people don't realize when you're writing a book is, especially when it takes almost a decade to finish,
It took you a decade to finish the book?
It took about 7 years. So like, you could say by the time it came out in the UK, it was almost like 8 or 9 years maybe. Like, from the time I started,
Sure,
the whole process. But I would say writing the draft that finally got published took about 7 years. And then finding an agent, and I was a nobody. So nobody really, I was in a million slush piles, I'm sure, but nobody was really taking this manuscript that seriously. Why should they? Like, there was no reason to. And I think it's important to remember you need one yes. You need one person to see what you have to offer. I think it's important to remember that when you're writing something, be brave with it. Go with it. Go with your gut. Go with your instinct. Sit with yourself and really discover the story that wants to be told through you, because editors and publishers and agents are great, but they don't, they also follow market trends. They don't know necessarily even what they want to read. I think your average reader doesn't even necessarily know what they are craving and what they want to read. Sometimes you can be the one to show them, wow, this is the book that I've been waiting for. This is the book I really want to read. So, but of course, there's a lot of doubt along the way. I quit many times. There were many times when I said, I'm really not meant to do this. I think quitting is okay. Like having that feeling of like really dark, dismal, whatever you want to call it, failure, just feeling like you've fallen into a pit with your work. I think that's okay.
Because that's like the journey of the artist, right?
Yeah, and I think we need to normalize it a little more, I think we need to not just normalize the struggle, but normalize the part of it where you just don't want to do this anymore, where you want to walk away from the thing you love the most. We can talk about it, I guess, at some point. I think that comes up with motherhood too, like, or even with marriage or any kind of relationship. You can have moments, dark moments when you say, I'm done with this. I want to walk away from the thing that I love the most. But that doesn't mean it's over,
Right. Oh yes, there's so much wisdom and gems with that. I was just with my kids in Chicago. We were visiting family, and I'm like, okay, motherhood, alone with my 2 kids. I love them so much.
Yeah.
And the triggers are real.
Yes.
It's hard.
Yeah, and the this and the but and the kind of allowing yourself to hold these paradoxes is huge. Like you sometimes have to live 2 things that are completely contradictory to one another.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like we are denying that ability to even acknowledge that motherhood can have two sides, or even relationships. The juiciest ones can have two sides, but it doesn't mean that we're, always throwing in the towel. There are times when those things do happen for sure, but absolutely, I love the paradox, and I think it's so important to normalize both the grief and the joy, both the hardships and the fun and the pleasure, and sometimes the moments that knock you off your feet.
Exactly. I mean, that's why it was so important for me, I think, to write this book. I couldn't name it at the time because I wasn't a mother, but I have a beautiful relationship with my mother, and a beautiful relationship with my grandmother and all my aunts. And I kind of come from this family where there are so many amazing, compelling women. And I think it's maybe not a great thing to admit, but sometimes the men almost disappear into the background because the women are just so spectacular. At least for me, that's how I experience it. And I wanted to share a story or create a story about women that was really complex and that allowed them to be both, to be light and dark, that allowed them to be whole people and not just a kind of deified, idealized vision of what a woman is supposed to be. And I think that's a cultural phenomenon. That's across the world. I think you see it especially in the context of South Asian cultures. I mean, in Hindu culture in particular, the notion of mother as goddess, wife as goddess. In the Hindu wedding ceremony, you're saying you were just attending a wedding in India.
I was.
In the Hindu wedding ceremony, the bride is supposed to be kind of an incarnation of Lakshmi as she enters that kind of bridal bower, and that's a big those are kind of big shoes to fill, and also kind of uncomfortable shoes to fill.
It's so true. I was even thinking about it. Even when my daughter was born, everyone would say, "Oh, Lakshmi's entered your home. The goddess has entered your home," which, yes, it's true. And also, there's the Hindu beliefs around the daughters bringing luck to the family in many
And
ways.
wealth.
And wealth.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I want to get into the book because I'm in it right now and I cannot put it down. It's amazing. We have it here, Burnt Sugar, shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2020. I mean, this is like, how did you ever think that it would become the phenomenon that it is? Because I feel like there's a lot of people listening to this who I think have a dream of perhaps writing and braving new frontiers of being a writer, an author, using this medium as an art form. And it sounds like, you have in just your prose and your way of even explaining how has this even landed for you?
Well, I mean, being shortlisted for the Booker was the most surreal experience of my life. I think I had to just lie down on the floor and breathe deeply because it was definitely not something I ever expected. Again, as I said, I was writing completely in the dark. I mean, I would say for any aspiring writers who are listening, it's important to, I think, have a kind of devotion to the writing itself and to have an engagement and a relationship with the writing itself, where you can almost talk to the writing, you can almost talk to the page. It's not something that of course, it's difficult not to get frustrated when things don't come out exactly as you want. But to me, I find that when I am more of a channel and less of a creator, that's when I feel really beautiful things come through. With the novel, for example, I think with the first several drafts, I was trying really hard. There was a lot of efforting. It felt like work. There was this story, boiling in the pit of my stomach that I was kind of ready to serve to the world. But I felt kind of that I wasn't able to find the right way in. I wasn't able to find the right voice, the right tone, the right way to tell the story. Who was this woman who was speaking to me? And I had to kind of step back and just let her speak and put my hands up and take this position of, well, I don't know the answer. There was a kind of humility, I think, that I had to come to. You might want to even call it a rock bottom of sorts, where I had to just kind of say, I quit. I can't seem to control this. Because what would happen is I would really chart out the path of the novel. I would plot and I would plan and I would have flow charts and character descriptions. And I don't want to say that's wrong. Maybe I needed to do that as an exercise to kind of calm my brain down or get my brain to quiet and feel like it had done all the things it needed to do. Maybe there was also a process of knowing that had to happen through those kind of outlines and structure and like deep structuring of everything. But I found that when I put all of that away, and when I let go of all my preconceived notions of what the book was going to be, suddenly she kind of appeared in the room with me. And I felt like I was talking to her and she was kind of just telling me, this is my story. And it was a strange experience. I felt like I was a little bit nuts. It felt a little bit spiritual also, I have to say. It felt a little bit like a visitation. I was a bit scared to explain it or describe it like that in the beginning. But I'm getting a little more comfortable with that now, that, you know, that there is something for me that links creativity and spirituality, and that maybe this is not just a way potentially of knowing a book or knowing your subject matter or knowing your character, but this then becomes a way that you get to know yourself.
Well, and you talk about how you were in Vipassana and did some of these, you know, visits and downloads come through during your Vipassana time.
So when I was in my early to mid 20s, a friend of mine said, oh, I heard you want to write a book. You have to do Vipassana. And I wasn't really like fully writing the novel yet. I was kind of just at the beginning stages. And I was interested in Vipassana. I come from a family where a lot of the women have done Vipassana. Some of the women are Vipassana teachers. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And it was a really interesting experience. I think it was very hard for everyone around me. I didn't find it that difficult.
Did you go with some of your relatives?
No, well, the first time I went alone. The
Okay.
second time I took my mom with me.
Oh my gosh.
One of the things they tell you at the end of Vipassana is your parents have given you the gift of life. And so there's no way you can repay them except by bringing them here. And that kind of, I got brainwashed by that. And I said, I have to bring one of my parents. So I convinced my mom, and I think she kind of went nuts. But I kind of, I found it pretty easy overall. I think I really like being by myself. I like listening to the voices in my head. I know it sounds a bit strange, but there are those of us out there who like that. These kind of, I guess we're kind of these weird introverts.
So this 10-day journey.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah,
10
your
to 15 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah. So Vipassana is a kind of Buddha. I don't know if everyone is familiar. It's a Buddhist form of meditation originated from Burma, from Myanmar. And it apparently originated in India and then was lost in India and then brought back. And so you're basically silent for 10 days and with yourself. And I think you're meditating for almost 10 hours a day, and you have small breaks in between. And you have a little time to nap in the afternoon. You eat 2 meals a day. It's a kind of very ascetic life. You don't pay for it because the idea is that you go like a monk or a nun. You have given nothing to be there. And so everything you are receiving is kind of a gift. And it allows you to kind of enter with humility. So you're not expecting 5-star service, or you're not saying, oh, well, my cushion is less comfortable than that guy's cushion or whatever. You're just kind of there to receive, and you're in gratitude. So it was extremely powerful. I think, we live in this world where we're kind of numbing ourselves with our phones and our screens and conversations, and we have to talk everything out with other people. I don't know if you've ever noticed. I don't know if you do that. I definitely feel I have an idea or something happens in my life and I have to discuss it with everyone around me to kind of get feedback and make sure I'm okay.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I'm an external processor, but I feel like, as you are saying, you are an introvert. I feel like introverts don't have that issue as much. My husband is very much also an introvert, although now he feels like he's kind of, he's swinging in the other direction. But I do love externally processing, but to have the gift of, as you're sharing, to be sitting in Vipassana for 10 days, just like in your thoughts, I'm starting to get like palpitations right now. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that.
I mean,
but maybe I can.
You have to face a lot of really dark things about yourself, like everything kind of starts playing tricks on you. I think by the last day, a little bit, you're hallucinating or maybe that's reality in a way. Maybe there's something about the brightness of the colors and the feeling of the air on your skin when you're just paying such close attention, where everything is kind of almost orgasmic around you. I don't know how else to describe it. Maybe that is what we would feel and what our sensations can bring to us when we're not constantly numbing ourselves. But also perhaps the other side of that is that you can feel the pain everywhere as well. The pain is that much more sharp and kind of difficult to ignore. But I think it made me very aware of the potential, the potency of my senses. And I think when you read my novel, you'll get a sense of how visceral the narrator's experiences are, the way she processes the world, the way she experiences the world, the smells, the sounds, the feeling of things on her skin, the churning in her stomach, all of that. I think the novel is quite a visceral novel, and Vipassana definitely opened that up for me. I think there's a lot to be said for just being in your body by yourself and noticing what comes up.
I mean, that part is huge. Would you say that that also unlocked your spiritual practice in many ways?
I rejected, I think, meditation for a long time. Not maybe consciously rejected it, but I would always sort of say I don't have time and I don't have space to do it. And I would always be looking for these particular conditions. And I think because I did Vipassana, and in a way because you go there and you're there for this long period of time, you are sort of in the perfect condition to practice. And then to bring it back into your daily life becomes hard. It's again easy to make excuses. And a friend of mine the other day said, I just sit. I don't, I just close my eyes. And I was asking her, do you breathe? And she said, no, I just sit and close my eyes. And this was, I guess, a couple of months ago, actually. And I started doing that again. I just said, wherever I am, whether I'm, I'm in a car, I'm in a taxi, I'm waiting for my children to pick them up from school. I'm even sometimes it might look strange, but sometimes even when I'm waiting in a cafe behind my sunglasses, if I'm waiting for a friend, I'll just kind of close my eyes. And that practice also has just been amazing. I kind of can leave my body quite quickly that way and have these kind of transporting experiences, or even potentially work out problems that seem to have no solution. And so I think I'm discovering how to bring meditation into the busyness of everyday life, which maybe is the way you have to meditate as a mother. I don't know. I sometimes wonder, when you have this busy life and when you're kind of going from school run to here to there, is it always possible to find that perfect space where it's quiet without the kids, without this, without that, to just shut everything out?
No, you're so right. I feel like I've had to grieve the loss of how I used to do my morning routines, where now I'm like, okay, I will pick, if I'm making my chai, which of course, love my chai, I will make that a sacred practice. So it's intentional that I am putting my affirmations and every adrak that I'm cutting or pouncing on the elaichi or the cardamom or the cinnamon, and I'm sprinkling it, but I'm doing it as a blessing for myself. Because I used to actually, and this was when maybe even my daughter was born, but definitely when my son was younger, I would beat myself up for not having the same kind of rituals and not accepting because I'm like, oh, I'm one who used to teach all of this and the hour-long thing and people just lying about their rituals online as moms. Yeah. And I'm like, I have to just be really cognizant of, all right, I can't do all of it, but what can I do? Some days, can I get them to sit with me? Sure. Is it going to be a 2-minute Thomas the Train one? Because now they have these types of apps that have Peppa Pig and Thomas the Train, and don't really want to know how to breathe bubbles out by counting up to 5. But hey, if that's the meditation we're doing today, so be it. But you're right. Can we actually find and carve the moments that we do have to ourselves?
And I love the fact that you brought up the word grief, because I think we don't talk about the fact that when there is a birth, something else has to die. And are we really taking the time to like think about the person we were before that maybe had to die? And are we giving ourselves the time and space to be really sad about the thing that we can't do anymore or the life that we can't have anymore? And it's not that you can't incorporate parts of that back in. And it's not that even motherhood is not kind of a static experience. I'm sure you know it changes. Every milestone your child goes through is also like a milestone as a mother, right? Suddenly, before you know it, they're grown up and they're off to school. And suddenly you have 7 hours free in the day. And it's like, oh, wow, And so that also continues to change. But I think it's so essential to grieve what we've kind of lost and to realize that each decision you make and each way in which you develop and decide to grow, there's potentially a door you have to close along the way. There are certain roads that you're not going to take, most probably. Or if you do take them, they're going to have to look extremely different. There's certain freedom you might not have for many years to come. And I think it's important to just sit with that and really be sad and create space to grieve that. I brought up the fact that I'm in the process of, separating and getting divorced from my husband. And I've had moments of deep, deep grief, of course, but I've also been okay. Like everybody keeps telling me, wow, like you're doing so well. I mean, you're just glowing. You've never been better. You just seem so clear. You seemed, everybody's been so kind and positive about it. But I realized to some degree I've also been managing and I haven't been sitting with the grief. And the grief is not always to do with the other person or with a particular loss of the other person. There's also, even if you're really happy to be getting divorced, and even if you both have mutually agreed on it and you think it's the best thing for everybody, there is the kind of death of a dream. And I think it's important to take the time to be sad for that as well.
I love that you're bringing this up because I think that so often we are so all about only prioritizing one type of emotion, and it's usually the positive ones. And there is reverence for the things that didn't go well. And there is reverence for the that sucked moments. And there is reverence for the fact that with every death or with every birth or with every new beginning, there is an end to something. A door closes, a failure, a setback, a challenge that needs to be grieved. And how do we start to do that? Well, it's first by, just acknowledging it. And so for you to even give air to, and I feel so honored to have you share such a big life milestone moment as you're also writing your second book, here, but I think it's to normalize also what tends to happen behind closed doors, behind the veil of somebody who's written such a powerful book around family dynamics, which I'll let you speak to that in a moment. But I think that it's to be able to give voice to some of the things that sometimes we bury under a rug.
Yeah.
So your astrologer was right.
Yeah.
Of these exits happening at 40.
Definitely. And I think what's interesting is you don't even know it. There's this kind of external focus to the way we live. At least I experienced that I was living in this kind of very external way for the first 40 years of my life. And I didn't really pay attention to how much everything was just kind of an identity. And I never questioned, like, is there something deeper than that? And every time there would be some kind of threat to one identity or another, like, oh my God, am I a writer? No, maybe I'm not a writer. It would break me. Even this question of, am I a wife? Am I not a wife? And I think, I just looked at this prompt briefly, and I don't know if I'm supposed to bring it up now, but it says, if you could choose a superpower, what would it be? And I think it's a new superpower, but I think I've really opened up this ability to be curious. And I always had it with my fiction, but I noticed I would kind of project it and put it all into my writing, and I could explore everything in my writing. But in my life, I had to be very safe, and I was very guarded, and I had to really, there was some kind of survival anxiety. I always had this feeling like the rug may come out from under me at any time. And I've been able to very slowly begin to just be curious about, well, okay, maybe I have to release this identity of wife, but that's okay. Like, what, is it really like a necessary part of who I am? Is there, something about it that I was using as a shield or like as a way to protect myself from other things? And if I'm not wife, then what else can I be? And it's when I hear myself say this, it feels like this strange regressive thing because, I was raised as a good feminist, and I don't know, like, but I realized that I had these deep-seated beliefs about what I had to do to be a fulfilled person in this world. And I don't know if it came from my culture, but like marriage was a big one of them. And I realized that I had explored this in the novel because, Burnt Sugar it's the story of a woman whose mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And she now is forced to kind of take care of her mother. But her mother was also this rebellious person who didn't fit the norms of what it was to be a good girl in Indian society. And the daughter is kind of plagued by anxiety around who her mother is and who she herself, like who is she herself, reflected through her mother, and how is she going to live her life. And so it's this, our mothers kind of are interesting mirrors for us as well sometimes, and our daughters, our children in general as well. I mean, our fathers can be interesting mirrors for us too, or whoever our parents are. And I think in this case, I realized I was questioning, who are you if you're not a mother, if you're not a wife? Who is, if a woman is none of those things, what can she hold on to? Where is she standing?
And I think the identity piece is so big, especially coming from our diaspora, the cultures, and that you're taught from a very young age that when you grow older, you're going to get married, you're going to take care of the family. It's like all of these obligations. But now it seems like I was in the first marriage club as well. So welcome. And I feel like even for me going through that juncture in life, that intersection, there was a lot around anxiety, and there was a lot around identity of, am I this person? Am I, somebody else? Am I a dentist? I started to shed a lot of these layers, and it sounds like this question of curiosity. You're beginning to question this not just in your work. Yeah. And I love that you shared a little bit about the novel because I think everyone should definitely pick it up and get it. It's a brilliant read. It's a very easy read. I feel like it should be turned into a screenplay and movie.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I think it's brilliant. It really takes you in. So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that navigating these incredible waters as who is Avni at this season and stage of life.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it's interesting what you said about the first marriage club because, I know that you were married before but you didn't have children at that time. And I'm kind of at a similar point now, much later, but with children. And one of the things I'm curious about is how distinct or similar those two experiences are, because I think when you're married and you get divorced and there are no children in the picture, when all the details are kind of done, there's this potential to walk away
Completely.
and never look at each other again if you don't want to.
Completely.
But in this case, it's, there's this idea that, well, we're always going to be in each other's lives. And I'm interested in that, in the difficulty and the pain of that, but also what is the kind of constant lesson and teaching, and how is that person still a kind of perhaps a point of contention and conflict in your life, but also can that be transformed and transmuted into a place where they become a teacher in a way.
I love that you're bringing this all on this amazing table that we have here, filming in Dubai. And I feel like there's so much more to unpack with you. And I know that our time is precious here today. And I first also, before we get into our lovely igniting round, I want to guide people to where they can get the book.
So you can find the book on any of your, it should be in any of your local bookstores. I love to support local bookstores. Otherwise, you can go to, in the States, there's like Barnes and Nobles, but here in Dubai, there's Kinokuniya, Borders, Magrudy's, or you can look on Amazon. It's pretty much available anywhere. It's on audiobooks. And as you said, it's translated in 26 languages, so you can decide which language
Amazing.
you like to read in.
Amazing, amazing. And I just want to honor you for your vulnerability, your open honesty, your shares, because I think that for so many people walking the lines of transition, of a season of just change and embracing kind of the highs and lows, which is the complexity of our human experience. And I know this is what you write about, but now you're also feeling it in real time. Thank you for letting us be part of that journey with you.
Thank you.
All right, as we get into our final round. All right, this is my little, we have our spilling the chai section, so you can share as short or as long as you'd like. Maybe we could start with the conversation cards. We have our That Suck conversation cards because you already answered one.
Oh, God.
But pick one more to answer.
Okay, so this one is, what's something you gave up on? Why did you give up? And have you moved on from it or want to try again? I didn't really give up on it, but I think I always wanted to be an artist. And I was never very good at drawing or painting, or I don't have that dexterity. But I think I just want to be free and creative and maybe start having fun with drawing and paint. I think I watch my kids and there's like an envy I feel at how free they are and how they admire their own work and what's able to kind of come through them. And so I feel like I want to do that. There's something about when you've written a book and it's kind of been successful where you're very in your head about it and there's a kind of pressure. And I feel like I want to have maybe creative outlets that are totally just for me and where there's no pressure at all.
Spill the chai on Harry Potter or Hunger Games, the series.
I haven't read the Hunger Games books, but I love Harry Potter.
Romance novels or thrillers?
Romance novels. Oh my God, I used to love romance novels when I was younger.
Oh, they're so good, especially the ones, well, you grew up in the States, so the ones that you would get from like Walgreens or Duane Reade.
So good. The best.
So good.
I think that's how I learned about sex.
Yeah,
romance novels.
Exactly. And they were always so cheap too. It's like, oh, so great. Favorite place to write?
I used to write in bed, and I think I still like to write in bed or at least in my bedroom.
Best time of day for your creativity or inspiration to flow?
If I can wake up at 4 a.m., kind of straight from my dream state, I pay a lot of attention to my dreams. I write down my dreams. I analyze my dreams, which is a conversation for another day.
We'll have to bring you back for that, for sure.
But I feel like when I write, immediately after waking up, something very beautiful comes through.
Writing by pen and paper or typing on the computer?
I do a combination. I think I try to do what's convenient. I've been typing a lot more with my second book. I think a lot of the first book, Burnt Sugar, a lot of it was written by hand.
Do you notice a difference?
The books are totally different also, so that could be part of it. But I think there's a way in which now it's just much more convenient to go straight to the computer. I'm changing also.
You're changing.
Yeah.
Okay, one word that describes this season of life.
I think of this as a rebirth.
What are you braving currently in this season and stage of life?
What am I braving? I'm really coming to a point where I think, turning 40 was something huge for me. I suddenly had to face all my fears. I'm a huge astrology junkie, and so there are all these astrological transits that take place around the time you turn 40. So there's kind of an astrological reason that a lot of people go through this at 40. But I have found that everything I've been afraid of, everything I've kind of tried to brush under the rug has just been coming up to the surface, whether it's my fear around money and around managing money, my sense of like imposter syndrome. And recently I've also, I've been married for 8 years and I have 2 children, and I've recently separated from my husband. So that's also just this new beginning, something completely unexpected. And I think, it's felt like free fall. And for me, the kind of point of questioning myself and wondering whether I have the courage to face this is, well, do I let myself fall and just see where I land rather than clinging to something or clutching onto something or looking for something else external to stabilize me? It's been really powerful to see what inner resources come to the surface when everything else seems to fail.
Avni, this has been such a juicy and incredible conversation. I'm so excited to bring you back. Everyone, get the book Burnt Sugar. It is out wherever you get books. Where can everybody follow you and follow your journey?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is at Avni Doshi, and I have a website, avnidoshi.com. And otherwise, I guess just stay tuned. Hopefully the next book will be available at a bookstore near you.
Ooh, okay. We'll have to bring you back when there is a screenplay.
Yeah,
Coming
sure.
soon. All right. Until next time on The Brave Table. Welcome back to the other side. Oh my goodness, isn't she just so powerful? We dove into so many topics. So go ahead and get Burnt Sugar. Get it for a friend, a family member. You know how I love supporting authors, and I love a good fiction book. I feel like I read those in the bathroom and while I'm in the tub, and I think they're just such a great reprieve. And it's also great for just livening our curiosity and our creativity. So go ahead and grab Burnt Sugar and follow Avni Doshi on Instagram. She is just so magnetic and so powerful at Avni Doshi. That is AVNIDOSHI. You can also check her out on avnidoshi.com and see what she's up to, and maybe she'll release details on when her next book is happening. Now, if you are curious about to dive more into your creative process, or maybe just the art of creativity, or even getting your hands on writing your first book, I have linked 3 additional episodes for you in the show notes as well. So go ahead and you can start your journey there. And if you haven't already submitted your 5-star review, we would so love. This helps us get into the hands of more and more people, allowing them to be just a little bit more brave. So when you do that, I will send you our free gift. Just go ahead and screenshot your review and send it to support@globalgrit.co. That is support@globalgrit.co. And thank you, as always, for tuning in, giving us your time and your valuable, incredible energy. And I will see you soon.